just sent us a piece as well, which is going to be coming out in the next issue. Thanks so much. I mean, that's really exciting for us. What does Orwellian mean?
Yes, yes. Orwell. Well, Orwell is a very contradictory figure. People think they use the word Orwellian thinking that they're saying something, but if they really knew Orwell, they might not say Orwellian.
Yeah, well, they might avoid that word. They might find themselves, yeah. Well, I mean, he might even have been cancelled for some of the stuff he did. I mean, this is what, this is kind of the issue of the book here. But because before we talk about it,
could you hold it up?
You're in Hawaii.
Could you hold the book up
Yeah.
a bit? You just waved it. You just waved.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
it. Yeah. That, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
well,
you. That's
linger
good.
a little longer on that.
Okay. Yes. Okay. You
Yeah,
can put it down. Right.
And Paul, we again, another thank you, because we made you get up incredibly early, which is not your want. And you're in Hawaii, and you got up an hour too early, but you have been able to feed your geese.
Yeah, they were happy about that. They were happy and surprised. They were very surprised.
We normally have to wait another hour for this.
Oh, no.
How many geese are there?
I have 4, and
yeah.
one's sitting on eggs, so I'm likely to have more. They sit on about 15 eggs.
Yeah.
So,
but what you I mean, you kind of nursed from birth till death, and that was quite traumatic. I mean, I mean, you felt very bereaved when he died.
Yeah, Willie, he was born on April 23rd, so I named him after Shakespeare. What happened was the egg, well, I put one of the geese abandoned the nest, but there was a duck sitting on some eggs. So I put some goose eggs under the duck.
Yeah.
And the duck hatched the egg. And when this gosling came out of the duck's nest, he was very confused. So the first person he saw, first individual was me.
Yeah.
so he imprinted on me. And so for 15 years, I had this goose who was different from all the other geese. He attacked them, and he was my pal. When he died, I was very bereaved.
Yeah, so he sort of looked after you. Well, let's go on to the book, because I mean, I did want to ask, actually, when you're in Hawaii, and you also have a house in Cape Cod, you had this day off yesterday, but you're working all the time, aren't you? I mean, in some ways, you've never had a job, or not really had a proper job, at least for many, many decades. But also, you think you'd written your idler piece over the weekend. What's a typical day, Paul? I mean, how many hours are you writing each day, ideally?
I work every day, every weekday anyway, and so often on Saturday. You mentioned having a proper job. The last proper job I had was in 1971. I was a teacher at the University of Singapore. I quit in 71. We came to London, and I stayed in London for 17 years. An average day for me is get up, have a cup of tea, have oatmeal, and then look at the news on my computer, and then I resume whatever I've been doing the previous day. I could say that I've worked continually. I can't think of a time from the 60s onward, from probably 64 or 65, when I wasn't working on something, either a book or a story or something. So I've always had some work in hand, and I get up and I do that. I write in longhand, so I look at the news on the news, and then I write in longhand. If it's raining, I found London wonderful actually for work because of the weather. I like sitting in inclement weather, just sitting at home, the rain coming down, and I find it very hard to work on a sunny day. So if it's so I work every morning at home. If it's a sunny day, I go to the beach. I have a folding chair, and I write on a clipboard at the beach. And this book, this Orwell, Eric Blair is actually his real name. I wrote a lot of that at the beach. Wow. On a clipboard. The advantage I had in Hawaii was that the University of Hawaii has a wonderful library, and I have a card a special card, a faculty card, although I've never given a talk there. I don't know anyone except the librarian, but they have a very good section on Southeast Asia, Burma in particular. And so I found a lot of, if you're writing a historical novel, you really do need to do a lot of reading. So I had to read all the books about Orwell, all the books that Orwell read when he was in Burma, and then just go that way. So I had, there was a lot of note taking, something I'd never done this before. I'd never written a historical novel.
No, well, that's what I was thinking when I was going through it. And I mean, one of the great features about it is I think you'll kind of delight in the language that these officers use, and the people of Burma. And it struck me, you probably, there must be certain words and phrases that they, not like cad and bounder or whatever it might be. And I think it's very well, sort of put across. So was there sort of linguistic research in it, as well as the sort of facts about the history?
That's a very interesting question, the idiom, because there were certain words that the book is set from 1922 to 1927. And there were words that were not in use then. But here's the thing. I was thinking about this. Of course, I read a lot of books about the period, but I read a lot of novels set in the 1920s and earlier. And so the idiom is in those books. That was part of my program, actually, to find the way people talk. But the other thing is, so we moved to England in 1971. Orwell was born in 1903. And so if you're born in 1903, how old were you in 1971? You were in your 60s. I knew a lot of people in London in their 60s. My in-laws, writers, people on a bus, people that I met casually who were in their 60s, who were Orwell's age and who still use that idiom. People don't lose it. If someone used an expression, if they were born in 1903 and they used an expression from the 1920s, if they had it in their mind, they didn't stop using the idiom that they were raised in.
Yeah.
So although I did a lot of research and a lot of reading around the subject, I also thought, it's interesting. I lived in England for 17 years, and people were using these expressions all the time. Older people. And I also, wherever. I mean, and I also knew people who knew Orwell. I mean, I knew V.S. Pritchett very well. V.S. Pritchett was born in 1900, and he knew Orwell, talked to Orwell. I mean, and he said he was kind of rude. He would be rude to you, teasing, rude, and then walk away. Anthony Powell was at Eton with him. I knew him.
Well, because he sort of not satirizes him, but one of the characters in Dance to Musical Time is basically Orwell, isn't he? He's this sort of super left-wing guy. He goes tramping around the country.
Yes, exactly. But also the idiom is also Anglo-Indian. So Anglo-Indians had their own way of speaking, and you find that in a book called Hobson-Jobson. Hobson-Jobson is a dictionary of Anglo-Indian words and expressions. So I had Hobson-Jobson by my desk. So the idiom, I mean, I'm very pleased to hear you say that, because that was something that pleased me to have people, the ventriloquism of writing a historical novel,